2 months later, I spied Rex coming through the doors of my biodome. "How is your research coming?" Before I could say anything, Rex ventured, leaning against the side of my desk. "Our colleagues and I are impressed with what you have come up with so far. We have agreed to keep you on permanently." My heart ached hearing the word permanently. I wanted to go home. I wanted to return to the correct timeline. I wanted to see Drew, my children, and the LVN. I didn't want them to think they could get along without me. From the results of my testing, the soil is being poisoned. I do not know if it is intentional, but we have to find the source. I glanced up from the data I spent the last 2 hours reviewing. I have tested the normal things that would come in contact with the soil, such as the water system, rain when we get any, and so forth. I studied the reports, the information I gathered since I became a part of the university staff, until my eyes blurred. A slight headache formed. If we do not figure out what is poisoning the soil, this planet is going to die a slow and painful death. I met his gaze and questioned, "Is there a dumping ground around here? Somewhere where people dump toxic waste?" "Not that I know about." I felt as if he held something back. He wrinkled his nose and observed what I can only assume was a downcast expression on my face because he wagged his thumb at me. "However, I know someone who might. I'll set up a meeting for you with him." I tilted my head and gave him a sidelong glance. "Set up a meeting? What are you not telling me?" He hopped on the edge of the desk. "You will find out. If I say anything more, I will be killed." I raised my eyebrows. "Killed? By whom? Why does this sound like you know what is going on, but you haven't said anything?" He insisted, running his fingers through his hair. "Trust me. It is better you find out this way. Just be careful. Do not let them find out you know." "Let who find out I know what?" I eyed him and said with grave deliberation, "I worry about you, Rex. You are starting to sound like one of the conspiracists." I nodded my head to the window above me. "The ones who believe that the promised child will save India 7. There is a lot more happening on this planet than you know. Let's see what I do know. I know the soil is being poisoned. I know we have to stop it, or it will set off a chain of events like that woman who gave the prophecy predicted. Even worse," I revealed, leaning forward. I noticed the scar on his neck. I speculated where he might have gotten it. Fighting over a girl? Playing a sport? Maybe an accident of some sort? I know people are waiting on the promised child to fix this when we should be solving it now instead of waiting. Rex remained silent for a moment. He turned to look at me and touched my hand. "Sydney Grace tells me you are a time traveler. Tell me what happens in the future. What happens to India 7? How bad does it get?" He moved closer and pushed the hair out of my eyes. "Is that why you are here? Are you the chosen one come back to set this right? Do I get married? Do I have children? Grandchildren?" I shook my head and returned, "I have no idea what you are talking about, but even if I did, I couldn't tell you anything without disrupting the course of events." I took a deep breath, then wondered, searching his eyes, "How well do you know Sydney Grace? Is it possible she's one? That she is trying to deflect attention from herself?" He felt my forehead. "Are you sick? Have you taken leave of your senses? Sydney Grace? A time traveler?" He stroked my cheek and decided, "I do believe you are jealous." "Jealous? No, if you want to hang out with her, do her, marry her, I don't care. I have a boyfriend I love very much. A boyfriend who I have never seen, who never comes to see you. I think you made him up to keep me away, or maybe Sydney Grace is right and you are a time traveler, and the boyfriend is in the future." "What makes you think I am a time traveler?" I required, holding his gaze. "You appeared out of nowhere. I came from Earth. I was born here on India 7, and my parents raised me on Earth." "You know more advanced techniques than I have ever seen," he countered, making small circles on the desk with his finger. "I have worked with some of the most cutting-edge scientists on Earth, but if that qualifies me as a time traveler, so be it." "Then where did Sydney Grace get the idea that you are a time traveler?" "She says she can see when people make shifts in the timeline." I stood up and sighed. "If you want to believe me to be a time traveler, fine. What if I was? What happens to India 7? How bad does it get? Is that why you are here?" He repeated his previous questions. "Are you the chosen one Sydney Grace speaks of come back to set this right? Do I get married? Do I have children?
Grandchildren?
I looked back at him and walked out the doors. I headed to my dwelling.